And we're live, and welcome to another episode of Crafted Podcast. I'm James Wright, and I'm also here with Zack Herberholst.
Hey.
And we have one new host with us, and we're not going to tell you his name, but I'll let you say hi.
Hello.
So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna play a little bit. We're gonna play a little game. If you guys are all caught up, you heard in the last episode that we're going to be introducing a new host who has been a guest on our show in the past. So we're going to ask him some questions, and we're not going to tell you who he is until somebody in the live chat mentions his name, and then the secret's out. So I guess we can jump right in. Let's start quizzing this guy. So how'd you get started?
Well, I grew up building houses with my dad, and then
that did not take long. Apparently, you have a unique voice, William Walker. I did not quite expect that.
Wow, I didn't even get to finish my my background.
Yeah. No. All right, you're done now, man. Anyway,
all right, cool.
Yeah, no more questions for this guy.
Well,
I'm kidding you.
We're glad to be here, guys.
Yeah. So everybody, welcome aboard, William Walker. He is one of my, I'll be honest with you, I don't get to watch near as much YouTube as I would like to. I used to, when I was working a full-time job, and I spent, most of my life hating my life, working 50 hours a week. I watched a lot of YouTube and lived vicariously through a lot of these people. And I don't get to watch a lot, but William Walker is definitely one of my favorites. If you're not familiar with his content, definitely check out his videos. They're the complete opposite of mine. Mine are really rough, dirty, sped up, and amateur, I guess is the best way to put it. William's work, he's a photographer, so he knows how to work.
Smooth, nice and clean videos.
Yeah, just very clean.
If you didn't know, actually, when we first started the podcast, William almost became the third person to host it. It was between him and me, but I apparently responded faster, so I got the job.
Yeah, so Johnny and I, we got in contact a while ago, and I kicked around the idea of starting up a podcast, and we were looking for hosts, and it was William Walker and James Wright. So James just got on it a little bit quicker. So that's kind of the story unfolding there.
So, but I got my second chance finally.
Absolutely, yeah. We're gonna miss Johnny. I wanted to just talk about. I was thinking about it earlier, and I truly think that. We're going to have him back on the show as a guest. His life is changing significantly. Like I said, if you'd listened to the last podcast, he's got a new human on the way, so that's going to change things up for him. But when I got started, I started out just I learned a lot of metal fabrication and stuff when I went to college, in about 2003, 2004 for automotive science, and started doing some custom work on a motorcycle, watching some welding videos. Then I was introduced to Jimmy DiResta, and I owe most of my success to him, because up until that point, I never thought about like, oh, maybe I can do furniture, because that's a lot easier to sell than art. So that's kind of what got me into it, was Jimmy. And I'll talk about Fabtech, but I just got done spending a couple of days with all of my favorite people up in Chicago for the Fabtech event. But I just want to talk about Johnny, man. That guy, I owe a lot of my success to Johnny Brooke. We started out around the same time, and we've grown together as a channel. And as far as somebody who really has their head together in the business and marketing end of YouTube, I think he's the best out there as far as marketing, and he really helped get me in front of a lot of the companies that I'm working for. I wouldn't have been at Fabtech in Chicago if it weren't for Johnny Brooke. So that's kind of my little farewell and thank you to Johnny. And like I said, he's not going to be a stranger. He'll be back on the podcast, I'm sure, occasionally. So I'm not sure where to jump off from here.
Well,
we should ask William about his kind
William,
of
why don't you tell us about your background? What kind of woodworking you do? How'd you get started? And what is your channel all about?
So like I started to say before they guessed me right away. So I started building. I built houses with my dad growing up. He's a contractor, and so I learned a lot about the trades as a 14-year-old boy. Then
working for Kevin Spacey.
I started. Simultaneously, I started getting into photography, and I started shooting weddings with my photography teacher in high school. Went on to art school, became a professional photographer, and kind of left the construction behind. And then with my photography, I wanted to start offering picture frames to my clients. And so I reached back out to a friend of my dad's who is a cabinet maker and said, hey, could you kind of show me the ropes? And he said, sure. And I started making picture frames. And then that just kind of snowballed as this craft does. And I started getting into more and more advanced joinery and projects. And my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, asked me if I could make, a wine rack. And I said, sure, yeah. And I started making that, and then started building things for local clients, and thought, hey, like, well, why don't I video some of this to kind of create a local buzz? And I put a video up on YouTube, and grew from there. I had people in the UK and Brazil commenting on my videos, and it became a more global thing. So I just kind of kept rolling with it.
Yeah, your desk behind you, that's actually the first video you put out where I found you.
Oh, wow. Cool.
That was kind of
that was a fun build.
Yeah, and I'm not typically one for, that's kind of what's strange, is I'm usually not one for like the more artistic style videos, but yours are definitely an exception. I remember, I think it was it like the shoe? It's been a long time since I've seen the video, but didn't you do one that had like a shoe slot or something in it? And I just remember the music.
Yeah, the shoe dresser.
Yeah, I remember the music, and like you had a shot
Chopin.
of and you had a shot of like the stars. That was just such a well crafted video that that one really stuck out to me. But they're all great. That, and of course the slow-mo golf cart. I can't remember what I'm talking about. It had the music.
Yeah, the joiner's mallet to the gourds cover of Gin and Juice.
Yes. Those are two of my favorites. So like I said, if you guys aren't familiar with William Walker, definitely go check out his channel.
Yeah. So let me say we jump into what's new. What are we working on? Zach, you want to take us off?
Yeah. So as always, this has been a crazy week. That's like my catch line. So it really has, though. It's been fantastic, though. I don't even remember. It's all seriously been a blur. I think it was Sunday, because I'm on the East Coast time zone. We had the daylight savings time shift. Then I flew west to Chicago for the Fabtech event, which was so much fun. I feel like this is definitely the best community I've ever been involved with. It's, none of us are in competition. The more people, we're all on the same platform. So the more people somebody brings to YouTube, the better it is for all of us. If somebody watches my videos, they're going to watch, Will's videos, they're going to watch James. It's just a giant community, and we're all in it together on the same side. So it's a lot different from the other industries that I've worked in, where people keep secrets and, are kind of out for themselves. So, but this weekend I got to, we got to Chicago on Sunday night, and did this was on behalf of Lincoln Electric for Fabtech, which is like the world's biggest mostly metal fabrication event. And this expo center, I think it's the McCormick Center is what it's called, is the biggest enclosed space I think I've ever been to. I guess the floor was about, somebody said, just to visualize it, it's a little over 3 football fields by 3 football fields. And that was just for Fabtech. They had 2 other conventions in this center.
Yeah, I was going to say they have 3 other floors the same size.
It's just,
whoa.
I mean, I got lost. Like, I went to the bathroom, and it took me like 45 minutes to find the booth that I was working at afterwards. So yeah, it was incredible, but it's always great. So I got to, I got to work aside. Jimmy DiResta was there, of course. Johnny Brooke, you guys know who he is. John Malecki, Doug from Retro Weld, April Wilkerson. It was just such a good time. It was really incredible. It's always great to hang out with these people, and I feel like every time there's a gathering, it just gets better and better and better. So that was just a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and just getting to kind of spend time together was really great. So I think everybody's videos are going to be coming out in probably the next week for that. There were some really neat builds. Jimmy DeResta built a plasma cutout. So kind of the idea was that we were all going to do we all did a live build there that utilized the plasma cutter. So Jimmy had a table that blew my mind because he seriously welded this thing together in about 20 minutes, and it's pretty cool. So that's neat. April Wilkerson made a grenade stool, and I'm sure her video will be out on her site very soon. It is one of the coolest things I've seen, so I'm sure you guys get a kick out of that. John Malecki built a neat chair. Everybody built a nice cool thing.
Yeah, that C-clamp bench though, that was phenomenal.
Yeah, I built a big C-clamp bench, so that I'm hoping to have that video out this weekend. But that was fun. I put a lot of work into that, and it got a lot of attention, a lot of reshares by different companies there. So I feel pretty validated on that one. so yeah,
I liked it on Instagram.
What's that? Oh yeah, I have a few pictures of that on Instagram. So if you guys are curious, yeah, check out my Instagram.
So you've been doing some leather stuff too?
I've been doing a lot of leather work. People watching the video, like I made this journal. I've been doing some wallets, all sorts of stuff. I'm currently just working on a bunch of templates and seeing where it goes. But I have some ideas. I'm kind of learning leather working in its own right at the moment, and when I get the confidence there, I'm going to start incorporating it into furniture builds. But I'm probably going to do some leather working videos. It's kind of expensive to get into, but it's actually once you have the tools, it's you know, sustaining that really isn't much. It's just kind of a lot of money up front, a lot of tools, but once you get moving, it's really not that expensive to keep going. But it is time consuming. That's the catch. I mean, even those little these little wallets that I'm making, you know, they take me, these little card holders, they take me about an hour each to make. So that's, you know, that's kind of the biggest resource is time in that concern there. So
do you do any of the leather carving, surface carving?
I have. I don't have any here on my chaotic desk, but yeah, I have. I ordered the when I first started getting into it, I just ordered like the intro to leatherworking kit, pretty much is what it amounted to, and just kind of acquainted myself with carving and stitching and a little bit of everything. I really actually enjoy the carving. I just haven't found tactful patterns that I want to include in my work. Most of the stuff that you see out there when you get started is all that super highly intricate Western style tooling, which is really cool, but it's kind of out of touch. It's kind of out of date, I feel like, with modern times. I really enjoy doing it, but I feel like I have to figure out some other more subtle ways to work tooling and carving into it. But it's so much fun. I mean, if you guys are looking for something that you can do when you're done in the shop, if you're antsy and you just feel like creating something, I highly recommend it because it's a ton of fun. So
cool.
Do you follow American Made Upgrades on Instagram?
I do not.
Check. I think it's her. Check her out. Maybe him.
Yeah.
But she does a lot of leather work and like fender pick guards and stuff like that out of leather.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So maybe inspiration there.
Yeah, we got Master of None in the chat who was lent us all a helping hand at the Fabtech event. So he shot a lot of video that it was a little tricky there because there were so many people around. It was kind of tight quarters, so I didn't get to record as much there as I would like to have. But fortunately, Master of None got some good footage that I'll probably incorporate into my build video that I'm shooting to have out this Saturday.
Sweet.
So
looking forward to seeing that one.
Right on.
Thanks.
Will, you got what's going on with you?
Oh, I'll steal Zach's line. This week was crazy. I have been kind of all over the place and overwhelmed by life. But I just put out a video yesterday of it's like a bathroom countertop hair care product caddy organizer thing for my wife, because I was organizing the house and cleaning the house, and just her hair care stuff was all over the counter, and it was just kind of all cluttered. And I was like, well, I'll run down to the shop. And I had a piece of slightly curly cherry and some curly maple that I made this little Japanese inspired stand. I've also got a step stool on my bench right now that I'm making for my sister's birthday. I made her one some years back out of ponderosa pine, and that one broke. So a testament to my craftsmanship. So I'm building this one with a poplar base and walnut treads, and the poplar base is painted white, so it's white with black walnut treads. And I'm about to start on a very shallow wall cabinet with box jointed corners, book matched cherry mission style panel doors. And I'm building that for the company toolstoday.com, which make Amana bits. So I'm producing it for them. They're going to have it on their website. And I really got to get started on that. And it's going to go in my bathroom, kind of like a medicine cabinet. And I'm just trying to figure out I'm going to do the back panel to allow for wood movement, but also to have a mounting, somewhere to mount the cabinet to the wall without screwing up the box jointed corners. So if you guys have any ideas.
Well, I mean, I feel like
that would be awesome.
The whole French cleat thing is kind of a ubiquitous method that it seems like it's hard to get away from. It's so effective. That's my first thought. But I think it's going to be really.
I don't want to.
Go ahead.
Oh, just because it's so shallow, it's only going to be 3.5 inches deep. I don't want to steal away from the capacity of the cabinet.
Well, there's always metal French cleats that really only take up about 1/4 inch. You can get those for like shelving hangers.
Could you?
Yeah, what do they call them? Z-clips?
Yeah, Z-track.
Could you do like a rabbet in the back panel and actually set it in slightly deeper than the panel itself? So that and then do the French cleat in that area, so that the shelf, if you look at it from the side, the frame would actually be sitting right against the wall, but the panel on the inside could be recessed a little bit deeper to allow room for the French cleat, so that looking at it, it would butt flush with the wall, but it would actually, on the inside, the panel would maybe be inset maybe like 1/4 inch or however much room you'd need for a French cleat.
Yeah, my current solution is to make a groove in the panels, probably about 1/4 inch wide, and then do the floating back panel, but make it like 1/4 inch out of solid wood. And I think because it's going to be such a small cabinet that should, and then just drive some cabinet mounting screws through that into some studs in the wall. I think that'll hold just fine.
It'll be interesting to see how you tackle the problem. But I think it's going to be another thing is Williams I feel like he really bridges the gap right in between myself and James, because he actually does he does a little bit more hand tool stuff than Johnny did. So I mean, I've seen some of your dovetails, and not that Johnny doesn't do those, but Johnny is a very efficient power tool woodworker, and you kind of bridge that gap. But you also do have some welding projects and stuff. So
plus all the grizzly tools.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They help. I'm very pragmatic in my work, where if a power tool will do the job quicker, more efficiently, and just as good, I'll use that to not waste time. But at the same time, I'll easily grab a handsaw if it's going to be quicker than setting up a jig on a table saw and yada yada yada. If I just have to make a few cuts, and I'm really into the hand planes, grabbing those, taking the tool to the work rather than the work to the tool. So Yeah, like that big. I don't know if either of you guys saw it, but I made a big book matched live edge cherry dining table with welded metal base, and they were so big and heavy and unwieldy I couldn't pass them over my jointer without fumbling around with them. So then I reached for my 4-plane, my number 6, and jointed the edges that way, and that really worked well.
Yeah, if you guys aren't familiar with planes, it can be it's kind of confusing at first, especially like when you hear 4-plane and like a number 6 is a 4-plane can be confusing. But the 4 is FORE, but there is also an FOUR plane. What's that?
Yes. The name comes before because it was the first plane you used. It was the plane you used before all other planes.
Yeah, but a number 4 plane is not a 4-plane.
Yes,
it's usually a smoothing plane. So you have you kind of have well, for those unfamiliar, James, this is James' wheelhouse. Like if you had to talk about from start to finish hand planing, like you start out with a 4-plane, you usually move to, well, go ahead, James.
Well, it depends on what you're doing, but if you're flattening a surface, you use a 4-plane or a scrub plane to rough down flat. Then you use something longer, like a 7 or an 8, to actually flatten it out. And then you come back in with a very small plane, a 4 or a 3 or sometimes a 2, to smooth it out. And so each one has a slightly different step in there.
So I always heard that 4-plane was because it was a number 6 and it was a little bit smaller than the number 7. And so it'd be the foreman on the job, and he would bring his number 6 because it would fit in his toolbox to substitute for his number 7 that he would leave in his workshop.
This is like woodworking mythology. Nobody knows.
Well, the term 4-plane is actually a very old one, and goes back before the Bailey pattern to wooden planes.
Yeah, something about Odin and a hammer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, if you want to get into that, actually, the Norse woodworking tradition is that if you couldn't make it with a hatchet or axe, then you weren't a woodworker. And so they did all of their surface planing with an axe or hatchet. They did all of their woodworking, chisel working with axes and hatchets.
I've seen that, and it's like
it's really cool. A lot of skill, though.
Like seeing people like pretty much pair wood with like a giant bearded axe is kind of badass. For lack of a
I'm actually trying to build a collection of them so that I can do a few videos of that and learn the skill. Because you can get a mortising axe that is basically like a chisel at 90 degrees to a handle, and you can cut mortises with that.
Is it rounded?
What's that?
Is it like rounded like a axe head?
No,
or is it...
no, it's slightly rounded, but not enough. So you can cut like a 2 to 3 inch deep by 1 inch wide mortise.
A mortising axe.
Yes.
That sounds so cool.
Is that
and terrible to use?
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like
cool.
Like an axe is one of those tools that just like I feel like every man needs.
You'd have all of them.
You just feel like a more powerful creature if you own an axe. So.
Well,
all right, so that's a good segue. What are you working on?
I have been the month of November. I'm upgrading. I'm going to one video every day for the entire month, and so that means a ton of little build projects, a couple big build projects, and a lot of like quick tip videos. But it's been kind of stretching me. So in the last week, I put out a video on building VR goggles completely out of wood. That was kind of fun because I got to carve in Purple Heart for the front face of it. I'm making the lathe, which I'm doing a good bit on today. I did a drawer sorter for the kitchen. I did a chisel rack. I'm actually on another podcast too.
What?
Yeah, it's actually a running podcast called Becoming Ultra. So I am
hosted by Johnny Brooke.
Yes. But it's another trainer. He trains ultra distance running, but he takes people and then has a 6-month training program. So I'm working with him to do that. But part of it is every week to 3 weeks, I get on a podcast with him and actually document the whole training process. So as I'm planning on doing a 50-mile race in April. So that should be a fun one.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then on top of that, we have the kitchen remodel, and I'm wrapping that up now. So that's actually coming in through pretty well. So it's been a busy week.
So how does, like, I can't imagine, because I struggle really hard to get 2 videos out a month, and getting 1 a day. Like, how's your workflow work like that? Are you like putting like, how many hours do you spend preparing, filming, editing? Like, how do you fit that into a day?
Well, it depends video to video. Some of the I'm filling some of the days with a couple quick tip videos. So like 3 days a week, I'm going to be doing one that's just as I'm working on a project, I'll notice something that I'm doing, like I'm stripping finish off of a board. Well, let me take a moment and shoot a clip about how do I strip finish off a board, and I'll put that up. So it may only take me like 15 minutes to shoot, but that's part of the process of another build. And then editing on something quick like that, where it's like 2 clips that I'm editing together. I'm not doing any, detailed editing. I'm not putting a lot of music into it. It really only takes, 10, 15 minutes to edit it, and half an hour or so to upload and get that ready. So really a video like that only takes an hour, hour and a half to produce and put up. But then I am working on some of the bigger things like the lathe, where I break it up into segments. And so those I may have like 2 or 3 days a week that I schedule. Absolutely nothing happens in my life except for I'm working in the shop on the lathe. And then work around that. But then a lot of other little quick tips in this video. So I'm trying to do 2 to 3 days a week on a big project, 2 days a week on a couple smaller projects that I can bang out 1 or 2 of those a day, and then 2 days a week where I'm just doing editing and uploading. And so I like upload 4 or 5 videos 4 or 5 days in advance and schedule them all to come out.
I see. Yeah, that is so...
When do you run?
Whenever.
And you have kids, right? Or kids?
Yeah, I'm a stay-at-home dad with 3 kids. So, and then remodeling, like yesterday, I took the entire day and installed 20 can lights throughout the ceiling. So I spent the whole day in the attic installing those. So, yeah, life is fun. Life is fun.
Yeah, I feel like Zach and I, our lives are crazy right now, and then you got James who just does it.
I don't think he sleeps ever. He's
actually on top of it. I was looking at my calendar, and I've been averaging 8.5 hours of sleep a night.
Oh my god!
So yeah, life is really good,
and I have no excuses. It's funny. I was thinking about so. Again, if you guys follow my Instagram and my live stories, about a week ago, my wife and I went to this symphony and came back, and I don't have it next to me. So you can see this. This is the little leather journal. I have a sunglasses case that I made that's probably half a sheet of paper's worth of 4-ounce leather. And we came back, and I found a piece that was maybe 3 inches long by ½ an inch wide. And I wondered what happened to the rest of it. And after searching, we came to the conclusion that my dog ate it. And yeah, so it was like 11 o'clock. We had to take him to the pet emergency, and they gave him some sort of drug. And he threw up leather. Like, it was insane. And they're like huge pieces. I don't even know how he swallowed them. So that was I don't remember what got me on this story. I had some sort of segue, but yeah, there it is.
Cool. Well, we have
okay, got it. I remember it. That always happens. Yeah, we were just talking about how crazy life is, and my wife and I were like, oh my god, like we don't know how. I mean, we're struggling with like 2 dogs. I can't imagine how families I just couldn't imagine having children. I don't know how anybody does that. I feel like a dog.
It's hard.
Your first kid is absolutely crazy because it changes your life. Your second kid, it's a change, but not quite as much. But then the third kid, you think everything's going to be great because you've done this before 2 other times. The third kid blows your whole world out because suddenly everything's designed for 4 people, and then you have to add a third one. So you really can't do a car. You have to get a minivan. And getting an SUV with a third row is a pain because you have to still buckle the kids in, so you can't reach over the row to get to them. Then like the stroller, you can easily get a 2-seat stroller, but a 3-seat stroller is a pain to find. Sorry, you got me on another topic.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I mean, like, I could see maybe like one child per adult, but once you cross that threshold,
Yeah. And then you don't have 3 hands, so you're going into a store and it's you. How do you keep track of 3 kids? So it's a fun challenge.
Not going to do it. We should. Seems like we're getting a lot of questions from the.
Yeah, we've actually got quite a few in the chat. What do you say we jump into those?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
First up, we have one from Yan1024. I think Johnny mastered the name last week, but
Jonathan.
Jonathan. Jonathan. Sorry.
24. I got that.
Yeah, 24. Yeah. Do you have any experience using expanding or adjustable Spade auger bits? It requires so much torque, even with my 44 millimeter drill. I can barely twist in Beech. Can you actually get so much torque with the brace? And honestly, with like Beech and some of the hardwoods, no. You can get a brace with a much longer arm, in which case you can put in that torque. I have one brace that has the arm is out a full foot, so you have a 2-foot throw on it. And with that one, I probably could, but in Beech, I don't know if I want to do that. In Beech, I'd probably actually end up carving the hole. So I would get a gouge and literally carve the hole. So I would drill a smaller hole, like a 3/4 inch hole, and then enlarge it with a gouge. You guys have any say on that?
I have no experience in that.
My experience would be using some sort of either Forstner bit on a drill press. That makes it really easy. But yeah, if you're using a brace, I have no idea. I'm glad we have James as part of this because I have no clue.
The other thing I have done is using a hole saw in the brace because you're only cutting a little bit, that you don't need as much torque.
Seems like it'd be really hard. Like once you get like maybe 1/8 of an inch into the wood or 1/4 inch, it seems like it'd be really. Seems like you would have to hold it exactly perpendicular, otherwise it would bind up. It seems like that would be.
It bounces a little bit side to side, but not too much. It actually goes really well because I drilled out the holes on my chops with that, and so that was through. Through the leg was 4 inches deep, so I cut down about 2 inches, and then used a chisel to break out that piece, and then cut another 2 inches into it to go all the way through.
Yeah, I don't know. That's another thing, like having kids. I don't know how you guys manage without a drill press.
So we got another question.
I love my drill press.
Absolutely.
Yes. Honestly, I thought when I got my my beam, my post drill, which is basically a drill press you mount to a beam, and you
well, even that, just being able to assure a 90-degree hole is.
I thought I would use that a lot, and I thought that it would kind of take the place of a drill press, but I rarely use it. I only use it when I'm drilling through metal, and I want to put more torque on. I want to put more pressure on it. Because drilling a 90-degree hole or a level hole really is not hard at all with a brace. Even mechanically accurate 90-degree is very, very simple.
Yeah, not for me.
Well, actually, that was one of the videos this week I put out. Was a couple tips with that. Is if you're drilling with the brace in your gut. Horizontal, you can put a ring on the shank, and the ring lets you know if you're too low or too high, and you can actually get within a percentage of a degree accuracy.
That's crazy. Huh.
But
glad that's somebody else's problem.
Or you could just get a power tool and a drill has a level on it and drill your hole.
Yeah.
When I was timber framing my house, you're working with these 18-foot long timbers that you have to essentially draw bore the mortise with big honking pegs. And my buddy who's actually a timber smither.
Is that what they're called?
Is it timbersmith? Timbersmith?
Timbersmith. That sounds like a slur.
Yeah.
Dude with axe.
Yeah.
He made a little jig he called the perpendiculator for drilling holes with a power drill and auger bits. work. It was pretty efficient.
I just like, I'm still hung up on timbersmither. It sounds like something you'd say, like, it sounds like an insult.
You timbersmither.
Timbersmither.
Nah, it's the guy with like the big timber slicks that, you know, make the post and beam homes.
I get it. It just
of
like
yore.
sounds like the vernacular just sounds mean.
What would you call it? A timber right? I don't know.
I don't know. I do not know.
But I believe that is the preferred nomenclature for fellas that do that sort of work. Timbersmith.
I like it.
Well, we got another question from Kurt Ziegler. Do you guys start building brands, your names with separate, start building brands, names, separate accounts, detailed website, even before you became, or even before this became an official business?
Yes, always.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Just with my background, having two businesses, being a photographer and a woodworker, and studying the business of social media, kind of being your brand, being somebody that your customers are going to want you for your brand instead of, yeah, I can do that, but like do it the Will Walker way. Kind of having an aesthetic and turning jobs down that I don't necessarily want to do because they're outside of my aesthetic. Really, really makes me happy. So when a business does come, you already have your kind of brand identity. So that's my answer. Yes, always.
Mine was different because I didn't know what I was doing. I just like mine, not that it's inorganic to do it a different way, but mine came about as more of a necessity. It was something that I was already building stuff, and it was just kind of an organic, like, well, what's going to help me promote this? What's going to help me do this? In hindsight, if I had the foresight to actually start creating a brand and doing all of this, I certainly, that's the way to go. I mean, but I think you have to have both at the same time. But the more pre-thought that goes into it, the better off you're going to be. Because I mean, if you have a brand but you don't have any content, then they're kind of a symbiotic relationship between your brand and your product. So I think you really have to have both.
Yeah, and mine was kind of different because I kind of accidentally became a business, because it was a hobby for me that I really enjoyed, and then suddenly people wanted to see more of it, and so it was kind of it wasn't something I was expecting. So I had the videos going and all that running, and then I had to find all of the other business accounts and things like that to fit it. Whereas in the past, on several other businesses, I've done it completely with, making everything right, setting up the accounts, getting the logos, that type of thing, and then launching the business. So I guess it depends on, if you want it to be a business, if you're planning, quitting your job and becoming an entrepreneur, being able to do the footwork ahead of time is very, very valuable. Being able to think through it before you actually jumped off the bridge is very useful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you're starting out, I guess if I could like go back in time and tell myself something, and fortunately I did, I think I've actually been, and it's going to come up later when we're talking about what we've been reading and stuff, but just branding is huge. And I feel like not necessarily just in the sense of like what you think of when you conventionally think of branding, but what you represent as a maker, like the associations people have with you and with your logo. So I think one of the things that's really, really important, if you're going to do this, get a good logo. Like unless you're a graphic designer, it's probably worth your time and your money to hire somebody to come up with your logo. Sticker swaps are huge in this community. I have it's across the room where I'd show it, but I have essentially a box that has hundreds of people's stickers and logos, and a lot of them are good, but a lot of them are too complicated. There's too many words, there's too many logos, there's too many. Yeah. It's something that it has too much information on it, and you don't need all of that. What you want is, imagine a wall of 100 stickers. How is yours going to stand out? Like, what are you going to do to make it memorable? And you want it to look good up close, and you want it to look good from you know, a couple feet away. So I think that's something that I feel like I wish more people in the community would take the time and money to really develop a logo, you know, an image that they feel represents them and looks really good. So that's one of my tips, I guess.
Yeah.
Sure. And rereading the question, I don't even know if Kurt is specifically talking about YouTube or just woodworking in general, just having a brand and selling pieces. But to go along with what Zack said about a great logo, you be the brand that you would want to buy from.
Yes.
So one of my absolutely favorite companies, it's located here in Charlottesville, Virginia, is called Blanc Creatives. And it's this guy, Corey Blanc, that now has a whole team of people. And he's got this awesome forge and welding shop, metal fabrication shop. And he makes carbon steel, these beautiful, beautiful carbon steel cookware. So saucepans, pans. They do a lot of handwork. They also make them in copper. And his website is just absolutely gorgeous. He's been featured in Garden and Gun magazine, Southern Living, all the
magazine,
you know,
called
big...
Garden and Gun magazine.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But so I really admire his business, and he doesn't do any video production. He doesn't do anything on YouTube. It's pretty much all Instagram and trade shows and getting in magazines. But his work is insane, but he photographs it really well too. And when he started the business, I mean, it was just like there, like everything was there. Like he started making things, building the brand before he launched the business and website. And yeah, that's be the brand that you would want to buy from.
Yeah. To quote Johnny Brooke, who quotes somebody else, but I'm going to quote him. He always says that your logo or your brand should look good on a chain, like on a necklace. And I think it's pretty funny, but I mean, he said it enough times, it really stuck with me, and it makes sense. I mean, if it doesn't look good, I mean, not that you'd actually wear it, you know, like a clock around your neck or something, but like it should look good on a necklace. And that's
so I was told if a 5-year-old can duplicate it and you still can recognize it, then it's a good logo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
So what do you say we jump into the joke of the week?
Yes.
Well, Jeff Gruff from the chat this week brought up one just a bit ago, and I rather enjoyed it. What happened to the wooden car with wooden wheels and all the engine was wooden? It wouldn't go.
That's so bad. That is so bad. I love it. That's what we're going for, though. If you guys, I'm sure this isn't your first.
Send in their jokes. We actually have 2 others that are in the queue, but
that's awesome. We'll save them because we don't get a lot of them, and the more cringy the jokes, the more I like them.
The more deadish.
Yes, I want them to be awful. And that
if it's a joke that I would put at the beginning of one of my videos, good.
Hey, could I answer a question from Jackman Works, from Paul Jackman?
Absolutely.
Yeah. He's asking when he can come over and play with my wood. If you guys don't know Paul Jackman of Jackman Works, he recently moved to Washington, D.C., which is about 2 hours north of Virginia. And Paul, you can come over anytime. Does anybody want to see Jackman Works William Walker Company collaboration video?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My question is it going to be softwood or hardwood?
Well, you know me, it's always hardwood.
That's good, I guess.
Oh.
Okay. All right. Moving right along.
All right.
What we're reading and watching. Will, why don't you kick this off?
What am I reading and watching? Right now, so I'm stuck in my office a lot editing photos, so I've been binge watching Californication, which is a totally guilty pleasure. It's good. It's based on a terrible, terrible man, but
he's very charismatic, though.
He is very charismatic and just makes terrible decisions, but you still root for him.
Yeah.
And I'm also rereading Good, Clean Fun by Nick Offerman, which is a great read if anybody. It's a great inspirational read. A lot of cool projects. Makes me want to get back in the shop, which is always good.
Love that book.
I haven't read that yet. It's on my list.
I've been watching Chop with Chris. He's a channel I've been following for a while. Hand tool guy. He does not as much like hand tool fine woodworking. He does more chopping. He's the guy who works with an axe and makes furniture with little more than an axe and a splitting wedge. Really, really cool videos. And he does a lot of different things. He does stop motion carving and things like that that are just really, really kind of cool. So definitely check out Chop with Chris.
Let's see mine. I have a restless dog. If you guys, this is the one that ate the wallet. His name's Rico. Let's see here. So I'm reading a couple. Time out. There we go. Okay. So I'm reading a couple of books right now. One of them is called The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman, and it's still an interesting read. It's a little bit more. I feel like it's a little bit more catered to. I mean, it's about design, obviously, but it's more catered to a lot of psychology and like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like in the intuitive nature, and it talks about what makes for a good design versus a bad design. You know, like essentially the premise of the book is like, by looking at, for example, like a door, you should know intuitively whether it should be pushed or pulled and which side to be pushed or pulled. And you know, if you have a handle, that kind of tells you like, okay, you pull on it. If you have a bar, you push on it. And he talks about bad designs, and one of the funniest ones is just stove designs. And he shows like layouts for which controls or which burners, and how no stove company has the same layout as other ones, and some of them are terrible. And it's kind of an interesting book. But like I said, it's more rooted on psychology than I kind of expected, but it's still a decent read. But the one that I'm reading right now that I have a link to, it's called You Are Your Brand, and I can't remember the author. It's really small. Like I ordered it and I was excited, and then I got it, and it's really small, and like 30 to 40% of it is like it asks you a question and you fill it out. So I thought, I don't know if you guys watch Family Guy, but like it reminded me of the episode where Brian talked about how he could write a successful book and it'd just be a piece of crap. And he did. That's what I thought when I got the book, but it's actually really good. If you work through the workbook, it's pretty much about building your brand. And like I was talking about earlier, what kind of associations people have with your logo. And, you know, it's kind of the building on the sell the sizzle, not the steak idea. So
yeah,
it's a good read. It's cheap and short. So if that's something that you guys are thinking about, I recommend it.
Sweet. So, yeah. Well, Zach, why don't you kick us off with favorite tool of the week?
Yeah. So when I was at Fabtech this week, I've actually had a Lincoln Electric square wave TIG welder that I have not taken out of the box, mostly due to the fact that I'm limited on shop space, and most of my projects I'm kind of trying to get them done quickly. So I typically rely on a MIG welder because it's quick, and you know, if you want to grind the welds down, it works really great for that. However, I've wanted to do some aluminum and stainless steel, and it's been about 10-12 years since I picked up a TIG welder and actually used it. So when I was at the Lincoln booth, literally one of the world's best welders, I think his name is Andrew Cardin. Anyway, he's on Instagram as the Boston Welda. Let me see, he spells it like you would if you're from Boston. So let me see here. Yeah, the Boston, Weldah. But he walked me through. We TIGged up some steel and some aluminum, and I kind of got my groove back a little bit. So it's a really TIG welders have come such a long ways since when I learned. I mean, you used to have to change the tips out for, you know, if you're doing steel versus aluminum, and the square wave with the inverter is
square wave just changes everything.
It does. I mean, like when I learned, like I said, it was way more of a process to switch between metals, and they've really come a long ways. So I'm going to hopefully be using that here in the near
Have you
future.
tried welding together aluminum cans?
No, I'm aluminum right now. Like just welding 2 chunks of aluminum is I need to do some more of that before I work on, cans and razor blades and stuff.
That was always my final TIG test for my students, was welding together end-to-end aluminum cans.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Getting an even bead all the way around the can.
Nope. Not gonna happen.
Nope.
It's actually easier than you think, as long as you have the settings right. It goes pretty well.
I'll take your word for it. Yeah.
So, Will, what you got?
I see a spool gun in my future instead of a TIG welder.
Yeah.
My favorite tool right now is it's a Shopfox quick release bench vise. It's a 9-inch bench vise. I'm actually giving one away when I hit a certain subscriber milestone on my channel. But I just replaced, it was a smaller Irwin vise, and I replaced it with a Shopfox 9-inch vise quick release, and it's just awesome. The quick release. Oh, you all right, James? It's awesome having the quick release. It just makes everything go super fast, especially if you're working on different size pieces of wood.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's actually going to go on my Roubeau bench once I finish that. A lot of guys ask me when I'm going to finish that. But when I finish the top, I got super swamped with everything else and some commissions, and I always put commissions before personal projects. So it's still sitting on my shop floor waiting for a base.
Quick release vise just changes everything with woodworking. It's one of those things you don't realize how much fun it is until you play with it, and then you go back to a regular screw vise and it's like, oh man, this is forever.
You mentioned
a whole 10 seconds longer.
You mentioned personal projects not taking precedence, and if you guys have watched this podcast from a year ago, you see that slab in the background? That has been there for almost 2 years. And it's the only personal project I've had, and it's still in the corner of my room. So, who knows?
Well, for me, my tool of the week is a draw knife. Simple tool, but so much fun. It's like a spoke shave on steroids. Take off serious amounts of material, and the only problem with it is that you have to be careful not to take off too much, because it is so much fun to play with. But yeah, draw knife, definitely worth having.
That's my favorite tool for debarking live edge slabs.
Yes. Cool. I think that about does it for this week. I do want to say a huge thank you to the patrons on Patreon. We just added a $250 goal, and looking forward to hitting that. I do want to say thank you to Make, Build, Modify, Master of None, and Deby Brooke, our top patrons of the week. And so thank you for that. We are looking forward to what we have in the future. Also, I do want to say we are going to be changing the podcast name. So soon you're going to be seeing a Crafted Podcast, aka the Crafted, what was the name?
Creators Collective.
Creators Collective.
That's what we're leaning towards right now. So we're going to make the make the change pretty quick. So that's definitely what we're leaning towards. If you guys have any suggestions, feel free to shoot them our way. I'd love to hear them.
So we'll be doing the new Instagram and Twitter and website, but for the moment, it is still Crafted Podcast. So definitely keep an eye open for that.
Yeah, and we should hopefully, once we get that figured out, we have a little money from our Patreon supporters. We're actually finally going to get into the merch world and make some shirts. So stay tuned for that. Also, we're really close to hitting our goal for having a weekend show. So little insider show for our Patreon supporters. So yeah.
Booyah. So I think it'll about do it for this week. And until next time, see ya.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.